Yeah, I would say the biggest change for me is now that we are allocating a significant amount of our resources to the players, which was not the case before earlier in my career. And so, so much of the job now is, um, particularly at a level like Tulsa at the G6, where you're not going to have enough to do everything. I think the art of the job is allocating your resources to the most impactful areas and really understanding um, how that you can operate your department as a business to run as lean as and as efficient as you can with your operating budget so that you have enough resources to give to your coaches, particularly in football and basketball, to build winning teams. And that is the art of the job now. And I think you'll continue to see that. And regardless of what level you're at, it's just a little bit different. So here, because of where we are, all of our player resources can technically be revenue sharing because we are so far below the cap. Well, if you're at, one of the Power Four schools, so much of their day is spent on how do we get above the cap dollars and how do we reorganize the department or change our structure to allow us to do that. And so I think everybody's trying to figure out what changes do you have to make and what mechanisms do you put in place to allow your coaches to acquire the highest level of talent, because you have to have a certain level of talent to be successful. And the way that you do that now is very different than it was just a couple years ago.
Here at University of Tulsa, just finished interviewing Justin Moore, the athletic director, and now just kind of broke into the stadium a little bit. Just kidding, the gates were open. But about to head south to Texas. This campus is awesome. The city and state is really cool. I started the day obviously in Stillwater, then went over to Oral Roberts with Tim Johnson, and then rushed over here. Traffic on Tulsa King seemed easier than the traffic I dealt with to try and get from Oral Roberts to University of Tulsa. It took like 45 minutes to go 6 miles. Other than that, really enjoyed my time in Tulsa. Great interviews. I'll have clips from both of them to share something with you, so you don't have to wait for the interviews. But thank you to AD Vantage. Thank you to Pilotics for making this trip possible. This is the beginning. What was it like going from this Texas A&M College Station, right, to this huge campus, huge stadium, uh, and then also being at Houston in the past, and then you take the athletic director job at University of Tulsa, a much smaller private institution.
Mm-hmm.
So what was kind of that like culture change like? How long do you think it took until you kind of feel like you truly got used to this new institution type? Because it is very different.
Yeah, good question. It is very different. I would say, one of the differences that I really enjoy is at a small private institution, you don't have near the layers of red tape that you do at a large public institution. And so just the ease and the agility to be able to get things done and to make decisions quicker, I've really enjoyed that. But the size is for sure different. I think one thing that's unique too about Tulsa is because of the size of the institution, student athletes make up about 1/10 of the entire student population. And so we are much more integrated in campus as opposed to a place like Texas A&M where you kind of are off by your side, you run your own business. And there is some interaction with campus, but it's not the same as being at Tulsa, where when I walk across campus, most people I see are student athletes. And so I've really enjoyed that part of it, but it is for sure different. But I do not miss a lot of the red tape of a big public institution.
Yeah, the agility to quickly make a change right now more than ever. I
For
mean,
sure.
that's huge to get anything done and not get left behind, right?
For sure. And again, that's a great point. Right now, I think the schools that can have a great plan and that can stay a little bit ahead of the curve and be able to make decisions as you learn new changes and things that are happening have an advantage. And so we try to do our best to plan for what we know. And then I keep our president and our board up to date. And so as things change and I think, hey, we need to go this direction, I can have those conversations. And as long as they approve it, we can go. And it's much easier, much quicker to do that here than it is at some of those other places.
Well, The other downside, sometimes would be smaller campus means you have smaller living alumni,
Mm,
and that can translate right now into roster building
mhm.
and be able to find new pockets of revenue from or different supporters, not necessarily different revenue sources. But how do you kind of handle that and see that
Mm.
approach? Maybe what alternatives do you take since you can't rely on that?
Yeah, we are the smallest football Division One playing institution, so that is for sure a challenge in terms of just the sheer size of our alumni base is one of the smaller ones. But I would say we've been fortunate that we have some very affluent former student athletes and people in the community that have been extremely supportive. But I think the most important thing is, and you see a lot of our marketing ads, we want to be Tulsa's team because for us to be successful, we have to have the city of Tulsa impact us and be behind us just because of the numbers. And so um, it's actually part of our mission statement. Our mission is to develop people and inspire community through championship athletics. And we include the community in there because it's that important to what we do. And we cannot be successful if we don't have them, not just from a fundraising standpoint, but attendance at our games and selling tickets and everything that we need to be successful. We need the city of Tulsa behind us. And so it's a core part of what we do and will always be a major factor because again, without that, we can't be successful.
Game One is the preferred apparel and equipment provider of higher ed athletics. Is your uniform and apparel provider deal up soon? Considering your options? Do you like Under Armour, Adidas, Nike? Take your pick with Game One as your provider. Tim McMurray is a former college AD and understands your job. Visit the show notes to get in touch with Game One and Tim McMurray today. Well, I was thinking driving here, I'm going to TCU on this trip too, and Ryan Peck had told me that at TCU, Landman was obviously included in that, and they even worked in some NIL opportunities for student athletes to be extras on there. Any chance Tulsa King gets, in the future, maybe some cameos there, maybe promote the institution that
Hey,
way?
we're open to any and all NIL opportunities, but that one has not come up yet.
Let's see what we can do,
That's
right?
right. Yeah,
And if it, I don't even know if it has another season coming up. Great show,
yeah, it is a good
Tulsa
show.
King. So men's basketball, we were talking before this. Is I was at NES State a few years ago when we went to the NIT
Mm,
championship. So I understand. For one, you're bummed because you feel like you had a if you have a 30-win season, people assume, oh, they must have made it in the tournament,
right.
right? But you all go 30-8 before losing the NIT championship, and I know it was a tough way to lose against an Auburn. And the previous year, though, you were 13-20.
Mm.
So, what was the new strategy? Was there a new strategy going into this past basketball season? Because it was the same coach. Obviously, you can turn over a roster
Mm-hmm.
quicker, or did the team was it retained and they're just a new strategy approach?
Yeah, good question. So we had really Coach Conkle had been here 3 seasons, took over a really difficult situation, and they had been doing a few things to get better, but they weren't able to quite get over the hump. And to be honest, I think the biggest difference was we gave Coach resources to help acquire a different level of talent on the roster. And to his credit, he did an incredible job of evaluating the right people, and then he got them to play well together and created a really good culture. And it was just a special group of kids. But, I think in today's world, it's no secret. You have to have a good coach, but you also have to have a certain level of resources for them to have a chance to be successful. And I think this current year was the first year that he really had those tools. And then he and his staff did a great job with that. And then we just got the right kids and sometimes you get the right group together and they just start playing well and you have some good early wins and we got some momentum going and it just turned into a really special year. And, people forget Tulsa has some incredible basketball history here. And so as we started winning, it was really cool to see the community get back involved. And really the last probably half of the year and then through our NIT run had some really, really good crowds. And it was a fun basketball experience again here.
Well, if it's anything like what was happening at Indiana State, I mean, the Holman Center would, I mean, it was just they were okay the year before that, but like it wasn't filling up.
Yeah.
Like the arena wasn't filling up. All of a sudden, you put a run together, you start playing fun basketball. So, what did your attendance look like even say the beginning of the season
Mm-hmm.
versus I'm guessing sellouts at the end or close
Yeah,
to it.
we were getting close to full at the end, and we've got a great arena. I would say, really, last year and then the first part of the season were very similar, and by the end, we were getting double the crowds that we were in those two times. So, and we have good basketball fans that know the game, and so it was a really good environment down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, OKC nearby. I mean,
Uh,
obviously everybody loves basketball right now
yeah,
too. That you start putting a winner on the floor, even people that were never fans before,
hmm
they're gonna game's gonna recognize game
for
and
sure.
hopefully show up. And so are things looking retention good or just refueling for next season too?
Yeah, we feel really good. We kept some of our key pieces, and then Coach and his staff have done a really good job of signing some of the new players for this year. And I think we're down to maybe just one spot left, but they feel really good about the roster, and we have high expectations again for next year.
I am curious, like just maybe not in this situation, but I'm kind of thinking, are we past the expectation that you can be good every year? Is it going to be? It's kind of like the NFL and the Super
Mm-hmm.
Bowl, right? You win the Super Bowl, and then what happens after that year? They probably get rid of some expensive
Mm-hmm.
players, and fans are okay. Like, hey, we can have an off year. We're not going to fire the coach because we just won the Super Bowl. If you're not constantly refueling those resources, I wonder if some departments or some presidents might even tell schools that, look, if we can't do this every year, but if we hit, one out of every 3 or 4 years, I wonder if we're going to start getting to that expectation versus let's keep a team together and, try to build and be a consistent winner. It'd just be kind of interesting to
Yeah,
see.
for sure, our expectations will be to win and be successful every season. Now, how you go about that is different than it used to be. And I do think to have sustained success, you do have to keep a core group of guys together, not just from a talent perspective, but from a culture perspective. It's really hard if you're bringing in a whole new team every year to maintain that culture and that consistency because you don't have somebody to carry it over to the new guys. And so, again, I think the model for us and at our level, it's not just Tulsa, but probably everyone at our level is you got to try to keep a core group of players together from year to year. You have to understand that you're going to lose some guys just because the difference in pay at the Power Four level now is getting so much different. And that's okay. You can't get hung up on that. Keep the core ones together, try to keep them as long as you can, and then you got to add talent from year to year. But our job is to continue to provide coach resources every year to allow him to do that. And so our expectations will be to win this year just like they were last year. And we've been able to give coach a better level of resources this year. And we'll continue to do that every year. At some point at this level, it is what it is, right? But we spend most of our time trying to drive revenue to find more resources to be able to give, particularly football and basketball, to help them build winning rosters.
Well, what are your thoughts on March Madness expanding the tournament to 76 teams from a Tulsa perspective and your level of school? Is that actually going to loosen up the likelihood that you can get, better scheduling flexibility with schools, or do you think it's actually going to be worse off? Because I think the writing's on the wall that the extra positions more likely it was built to for the P4 schools
Mm-hmm.
and the Big East as well, but like as far as just a scheduling component, how
Mm-hmm.
do you think the factors will be now with scheduling?
Yeah, so much of it's going to be determined by the net formula, and that's what the challenge has been for us and people at our level is, we're in that quad two, quad three area where the way that the net formula works for those schools to get into the NCAA tournament, the risk reward of playing us is not good. And so it's really challenging for us to get quality games, particularly at home. I mean, just people won't play us. So at best, we can maybe get a neutral site game. And so it makes it hard for us then to get our net high enough to become an at-large bid. So it's for sure geared to help the Power Four schools, and the net is weighted that way. And so I think it will take a little time to determine with the expansion of the tournament, how much that changes and if that will um, allow those schools to schedule differently. And again, if I understand their goal is to make it to the tournament, so they're going to schedule whatever they feel like is best. And so, really, I think at the crux of it is we have to figure out is the formula and the metrics that the tournament are using to pick teams, is that the best for everybody and for the health of the game? Because that's going to determine how those teams schedule.
That was what I was just thinking about. Is like, I mean, it sounds like a lot of ads are not going to like the net, and so at what point do you change it, and then how really how can people force that change?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it would have to go through the NCAA, right? And again, to your point, the majority and the numbers would have to outweigh the conferences that have most of the power right now. So, yeah, it's a good question. We talk about that a lot as a conference because in the American, that's one of our biggest challenges is men's basketball scheduling. Um, and then because we can't schedule great, it's harder for us to get more than one team into the tournament. So we talk about that a lot, and I know our conference will continue to push that. And so hopefully we can see some change because I think the tournament, what has made it special was the games where you have smaller schools getting to play some of the bigger schools, the upsets that anybody can win. And I think expanding the tournament, it's dangerous in that you have such a great event and so you're changing it already. But I think the people will be more open-minded to it if you're getting more teams in across the country of what has made the tournament great before, as opposed to getting the 10th, 11th, and 12th team, from one of the Power Four school conferences.
Well, you mentioned it's hard to get men's basketball or teams to come play you at home in men's basketball, but switching over to football, you all are going to have Oklahoma State come from Stillwater over here to play you at home, and that's obviously a big deal. And I had lunch with Chad Weiberg over here or over at Oklahoma State earlier today, and we talked about that. I didn't mention that you all beat them last year at Oklahoma State. Left that part out. But what in your head when you think about your traditional game day? What do you think that game day is going to look like whenever you've got your fans here? You're going to have their fans trying to get into the stadium, trying to tailgate because it's only like an hour drive.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that day going to be like for to be able to host them?
Yeah, it's a great series, and to be honest, credit to Chad and them for agreeing to it because that is unusual. But we actually have an 8-year series that we play a home and home for 8 years. And so 2 years ago, my first year here, we played them. And so I got to experience what that was like. And one, it will be a sellout, which is always great for us. And it's good for our kids to get to play in great environments, especially at home. And like you said, it's less than an hour away from Stillwater. This is probably their largest alumni base. And so it's an easy drive over, an easy game for them, and I think an opportunity for them to play in front of a lot of their fans too. And then again, it's great for us, obviously, when you get to sell all those tickets. But it's also great to have great tailgating atmosphere, a full stadium, and so we're appreciative of the series. I think it's a great series, and we have quite a few years left, and hopefully we can continue that.
Yeah, I like the localized approach and the regionalized approach is, as we start seeing schedule changes in football, I'm from Indianapolis, so they're in the Midwest. It's Big Ten and MAC country.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much used to in September you're going to have maybe one or two MAC games versus one or two Big Ten games. As things change, I'd love to see more schools. I mean, it's a lot easier for Oklahoma State to just drive an hour here instead of having to jump on a plane. And I think they were playing originally MAC schools. So they'd have to fly up. I mean, think of the cost savings too. If, the same FBS schools in a state could play each other. Can we bring some commonality and common sense back? I remember it reminded me of Bubba Cunningham being on the podcast years ago, talking about in a few years they're going to go play at Charlotte, and that was this past season. And I think there were some people complaining about it, but it made a lot of sense, and they were in the same system too, so it made it even more obvious. But hopefully, you all are going to be kind of a model for other schools that can do that. And then next time, just try to get Oklahoma to come the following weekend, right?
Yeah, well, we actually have Arkansas next year at
Oh,
our
wow.
place. And then several years ago, Oklahoma did come play here, which was obviously an incredible event for us and great attendance as well. So I think you're right. Like, obviously, selfishly for us, it's great. But the reality is, everybody now is trying to find ways to reduce expenses, and Oklahoma State's no different. And for them to be able to bus over and save the resources of not having to get another charter flight and all the things that come with that, and put those resources into other areas of the program, that's good for them as well. And so we, those games are great for us. We will continue to try to get those games, and hopefully we can continue that in the future.
Are your campus mental health services enough? Will your athletes trust to visit them on site? Consider supplemental mental health care through OnRise. It starts at $94.30 per athlete per year. That's $7.86 a month and 26 cents a day. Mental health care should belong to the whole roster, and with OnRise, it does. Visit onrise.care to learn more, and while you're there, check out their library of articles and resources. So there's been some talk about tennis programs, for example, around the country is the latest sport to be dropped. And I want to focus on something that not a lot of people are doing. Is you all made the decision last summer, I believe, that starting in fall of 2026, you all are going to start playing men's golf again.
Yep.
Talk about that backstory. I think it had been like almost 10 years since it went away. So obviously you weren't here. But talk about that process and consideration to bring it back, and then how do you operationalize that to actually bring it back?
Yeah, good question. When I first got hired here back in July, I mean, I would say for the first 6 months, I got asked more about men's golf than anything, and I
Do you
was
play
really
golf?
I was surprised. Yeah, I love golf. I don't play a lot because I've got two high school kids and a junior high kid, so I don't have a lot of free time. But I do like golf. But I didn't appreciate how big golf was in this community. But Tulsa is an incredible golf city, and there are 5 or 6 really high level courses in this area, and people around here just love golf. And then I also didn't realize how many former TU men's golfers had gone on to do great things, both in golf and in business. And so I just learned a lot more about it. And to be honest, they had started some of these initial conversations before I started. And so they started kind of gauging my temperature on it. And like a lot of athletic directors at our level, I was like, whoa, we don't have a lot of money, in case you're wondering, and we don't need to add expenses to that right now. And but we learned that we had some people that wanted to really help, and so we said, hey, if we can endow the program so that it will pay for itself, then I would consider it. And so we started down that path, and we were fortunate that we were able to raise enough money in a pretty short period of time so that we endow the men's golf program so that it covers all of its operating expenses. And so now that's our easiest program to have because it truly supports itself. And so, yeah, we're excited. We went out, we hired a great coach, and he's been here putting the team together. We've signed a full roster, and we start playing this fall. And everybody is really excited. It was a really cool deal for Tulsa and our athletics program, and really, to be honest, the university. It got some people back connected that were, disenfranchised when that happened. And so it's been great for not really just even the athletics department and the university, but the community. I hear about it all across town when we go out to the different golf courses and things. So, yeah, we're excited about it. We've got a great women's program playing in the NCAA regionals right now. And so I think it's a sport that we can be nationally competitive at too. And again, most importantly, we were able to raise enough money that it pays for itself.
Well, and you didn't have to invest in the facility because you already had women's golf.
Right.
I mean, that's another cost saving factor. It's not like you had tennis courts that were dormant or turned into pickleball courts in the last 5 years, right?
That's
so
right. Yeah.
That's got to help too.
Yeah.
Assess the whole department. Make the right decision. AD Vantage connects compensation, staffing, spending, budgeting, performance, contracts, and candidate intelligence, revealing relationships that siloed tools just cannot. Build your own watch list of coaches or administrators, create custom reports to compare, or just browse and compare when you have a thought or moment of curiosity. Visit athleticdirectorvantage.com for more info and a demo.
for sure.
Well, I like to highlight some AD tree branches, I guess, if or lack of a better word. So Joe Fields was hired at New Mexico State. He was with you at Texas A&M, I
Mm-hmm.
believe, and he was here with you. Maybe talk about your experience working with Joe, and then why you think, because I think it surprised a lot of people that coming quickly from Tulsa and then going immediately to New Mexico State, and he's one of the younger ADs I think that was
Mm-hmm.
hired in that cycle. So talk about your background with him, and then why you think what made him ready to be an AD at New Mexico State.
Yeah, I worked with Joe for a long time at Texas A&M. We hired him. Oh man, I can't remember the year, but he came in as our head of academics for the athletic department, and quickly I realized that Joe was going to be really really good. And I was at the time, I was the sport administrator for our football and men's basketball program, so I was working with him a lot, and we just had a great relationship. And I always thought if I got the opportunity that was the first person I would try to hire. And I was fortunate that when it worked out, I was able to convince him to come over to Tulsa and really let him be a true kind of number two. And he got his hands on everything. He was working with our football program, but really was a big part of helping me establish the culture, um, just kind of the processes and the rhythms and routines that we wanted to instill in Tulsa. It was very different. I really appreciated having somebody else to really help that when I got here, because what I've learned is there's just so many times you can say things to the staff, but most of the time you're not around. And so to have somebody that's there around the staff day to day, that when something comes up or is questioned, that you have another person that's pushing the exact same message, I think that really helped us get off to a good start here. And Joe did great work here. I knew I wouldn't have Joe for a long time at Tulsa. I'll be honest, I didn't know that he would get a job that quick. But if you know Joe and people that are around him, you're not surprised. He is incredibly talented. He's an incredible person, first of all. He's got a great um, interpersonal skills. Like, he's just really good with people, and he's really good with all types of people, from an inner city kid, student athlete, football player, which is what Joe was, to your top donor, to your board members. Like, he's really good at relating to everybody, and just he's understands what it looks like at a first class level, and has experience dealing with challenging situations at Texas A&M where it's a high profile. Like, he's just got a lot of great experiences, and so I think Joe will do a great job. I was not surprised once he got in the interview process that he would do well, and I talk to him still all the time, and I think he's off to a really good start there at New Mexico State.
Well, what I liked is we just don't see a lot of academic people. I mean, I got my start in compliance and then moved over to academics. I kind of bounced around between those two areas. A lot of people right now, that's not the
For
direction.
sure.
FBS level or just Division One in general,
Mm-hmm.
they're not hiring a lot of academic people to be their athletic directors. You helped bridge that gap. So, what did you all see at A&M that made you realize he could do not just the academics?
Yeah.
He could come to Tulsa and be a true number two, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and honestly, it started at A&M. To be honest, we were looking for ways to help him grow, and so we started giving him other things in the department for that exact reason. And when NIL started, what was that, back in whatever 2020 or so?
Yeah.
What was that, right? Yeah,
NIL was
like the original NIL.
oh yeah,
And um, we gave him that opportunity to really kind of coordinate the on-campus part of it, right as everybody was just kind of figuring out what this was going to be. And so he got some really good experience doing that. We gave him some other things. He started managing our Adidas account and a lot of the external side. And so we looked for ways to help him grow because we saw the potential in him. And so I knew that he was going to be good at a lot of those things, and he just needed the opportunity. And then I knew at this level, because of my experience at Houston, I knew how valuable working at a place like this is, where you just get to do so many more things than you get to do at a place like Texas A&M. You just have a lot less people here, and so you get to get your hands on areas that you wouldn't normally get to at those size institutions because they have so many people that you're just more specialized there. And we talked about that when I was recruiting him to come from A&M here. Is like, hey, this will be incredible experience for you. And I think he would tell you he would not be as prepared, maybe even prepared the right way to do the New Mexico State job had he not spent a year here seeing what it's like to operate a place at this kind of budget with this size staff. It's just a very different job than what it is at a place like Texas A&M. And so I think he would tell you that this experience was really good for him.
Yeah, and he went there and had to make like immediate changes to his staff and an organization structure. So yeah, it's the same thing going back to my Indiana State days. I was the academic director at Indiana State Athletics, and I'd be in the Monday morning meetings with the AD and his senior staff because everybody had the input because there was like 8 of us, and we all so that was his way of giving you different opportunities too, and that I didn't get that at IU athletics
For sure.
when I was in the Big Ten, and so that's great on you to be able to see that too, because I feel like the most thing that people ask me when they tell me they watch or listen to the show is they try to spot trends. They're like, well, I don't want to be typecasted as this. I want to try and get something else. And sometimes it takes putting yourself out there asking for different things, but at the same time it also takes the deputies and the ADs and the sport administrators to actually bring that to the surface too. It sounds like is what you did with Joe.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. One, I would say to your point, like you do need to put yourself out there and let people know that you have goals and aspirations because you can't assume that people know. And so I do think for young aspiring administrators in the right way, but to tell their supervisors, set a meeting with the athletic director, go tell them like, hey, ultimately, this is what I want to do. Can you give me some advice? I'm in academics now. Like, what can I do to expand my horizon? So they do need to know. And then the other thing I would say is do incredible work because if you do incredible work, they're going to want to keep you. And one of the ways that they need to keep you is to continue to give you ways to grow. And honestly, that was Joe. Like a couple of times we were really trying to retain him. And one of the way we were able to was to say, okay, well, hey, we'll let you do some of these things here so that you don't leave. And so be awesome at your job and tell people that what your goals and aspirations are.
This episode is sponsored by Pilytics. More money, less time, lower costs. Pilytics is an AI technology company dedicated to solutions that generate revenue, save you time, and reduce costs for universities campus-wide, including athletic departments. Increased donations, fast, effective targeting, improved performance. A custom platform designed to improve fundraising results in today's higher ed environment by fully leveraging all your data. Visit pilytics.ai today to learn more and request a demo. Well, the last thing I want to touch on is we've seen new revenue generation, new revenue streams. You all hosted Zach Bryan, a country music kind of superstar, Oklahoma native, to your football stadium in April for part of his tour. And I was wondering if you can just kind of talk about how you all approach that, because I think it's not new it's newish, but like a lot of athletic departments are now partnering with their institution, but they might be doing it in different ways to bring concerts. So just talk about that concert of how it went, what you learned from the first one.
Yeah, I think like everyone's trying to find as many revenue sources as they can, and that's become a popular one because it can generate really good revenue for you. I think a couple things I've learned, and I was fortunate that right before I left Texas A&M, we did a huge concert. I think it's still the largest one ever. We did George Strait in Kyle Field and sold, I think, 110,000 tickets. And so I learned a lot through that process.
I think he just broke his record again.
Oh,
I forget where he went, but like I heard I'm a big country music fan. I heard him say that George Strait broke his own personal record again, and I don't know where it was though.
Well, I know he's done some other shows. I think he just did Texas Tech, but he did a couple nights. But we only did one night, so maybe in total he did more. But anyways, I learned a lot through that process. And so when I came here, as we were talking and looking for new ways, I brought this up to my president and everybody. Hey, we'd like to do this. I think this can help us generate revenue. And going back to your first question, this is where it helps being at a small private school, but also it highlights the importance of making sure you're on the same page, because particularly on a small campus, that took everyone to pull something like that off. And so you have to have good buy-in from campus to say, hey, this is going to be bigger than just athletics, but it's also a really good event for the university as a whole and really even the community. And so we had support from campus, which I think is really important. You have to make sure you do that. And then I think we did a good job of keeping all of the parties involved throughout the planning process. And so that there weren't any surprises and everybody had their chance to, talk about their concerns. We partnered with the OVG group. That's how they helped get the artist. They manage the BOK Center here in Tulsa. And so between campus, our athletic staff, and the BOK staff, who's done a lot of these events, I think it's a long process that you just have to have consistent communication and make sure everybody's in the room. And, we had a running meeting that we changed the cadence as we got closer. Maybe we started out doing it once a month and then it was bi-weekly. And then as we're getting closer, we would do it every week. And I do think we had everybody was on the same page so that we were able to put on a really good event. And like anything, we learned little things here and there to tweak, but we for sure will try to do it again. And it was a great revenue source for us. It was a great highlight for campus. And I think, again, good for the overall community as well.
So you don't have to share numbers, but I mean, talk about revenue split of like how much of like that helps the athletic department, or is it the institution? Then obviously you're paying a partnering with the group as well. I mean, do you feel like athletics, is it more of an institution driver, or are you getting a big piece of that too?
Yeah, no, we get the vast majority of it. And I would say, again, it starts with making sure you're on the same page with campus, and they gave us the ability to do that. But I would say, we signed the agreement with OVG that was between OVG and athletics, and then we put the event on. Obviously, we coordinated with campus, but we really guided it and drove the event. We managed it, all of the things. So we were able to keep the revenue that way. But I think just the publicity of it, all of the talk on social media, bringing all those people to campus, a lot of them for the first time. There was a ton of people from out of state that have never been here before to get to see campus. So there's a lot of benefits for everybody, but the revenue that we generated got to come to athletics.
Well, it reminded me of now that we're starting to see people do this. So last October, I was driving our minivan to vacation because with little kids, it's just you have all this stuff, right? So like the grandparents went with my wife and the kids on a plane, and I drove it. So naturally, I stop at any college I drive by. It's just something I've always done for years on road trips. Obviously, I'm here in Oklahoma, and I just randomly, it's like I'm like 10 minutes from Georgia Southern. I'm just gonna go. So I have no idea. It's like a Friday night, but like it's October. I didn't think it'd be that crazy. So I get through there and I hear a live concert going on, but it's not in the stadium. It's like right outside. It's in between like the stadium and the practice facility. And I was like trying to hear who it was. It's like, that sounds like Gavin Adcock. And so then I look up his tour and it is Gavin Adcock. And so the whole campus is out. And the first thing I thought of, it takes a lot to put this on at this school right now. And like you're talking about, like Georgia Southern's police department was running it, and it's like a football game except louder, and it's later at night usually, and so I feel there's probably different dynamics than just saying, oh, we host football games, we can manage this, right?
For sure. I would say it's definitely more challenging than a football game. It requires far more staff. It requires metal detectors, which we don't require for our home football games. The concessions, the festival type concessions is such a bigger part of those. So we had a ton of additional outside vendors and things that we wouldn't normally have for a football game. So it is for sure a bigger undertaking than football. Now, football campus is involved in that as well because it is a big undertaking. But these major concerts where you're going to sell out and you're going to have a lot of people there, it is more. It requires more than just a home football game.
Well, this is a bad joke, but I'm assuming the second person you're going to reach out to now is the other Justin Moore.
Yeah. No, I told our OVG group, hey, you guys set the bar high with Zach Bryan on the first one. So they have a high bar to set, but I told them we expect somebody of that caliber. So we want to do it again next year.
Well, it's funny is to close this out is you said that, a tenth of every 10 students is an athlete. So when I was pulling up here, I came straight over from Oral Roberts, and so I'm just driving through Tulsa and just happened to be playing Zach Bryan's his album, and so I'm listening to that, and I'm like pulling right up next to some of your athletes, and at least they look like athletes. I shouldn't stereotype, but I assume they were. And they're like, one of them started like singing the song, and I just turned it up a little bit as I was pulling into your building here. So it was cool to get an Oklahoma native that you were all able to do that, and I just feel like this is something that we're going to see more of everywhere.
Sure.
And then I also wonder, like, how many can someone realistically put on? Like, is it, let's, try to do this, 4 or 5 times a year instead of once or twice? And in a location like this, Tulsa, I feel like with this weather, you can probably do it quite often, right?
It's there are certainly pockets of the year that you can do it that are much easier than others. I will say what we learned. It is challenging to do it when school is in session, just because you've got to clear. It's a week-long process for them to load in, and you've got to clear out parking lots, and you got to block off streets, and so there's a lot. It's about a week-long process, and so when school's going on and there's a lot of things, it's challenging. It would be really challenging to do it during football season. For us, the sweet spot is spring, post graduation through the summer. In that window, I would say we could do more than one. And again, it just depends on where you are and what all goes into your stadium, the logistics of where your stadium is. If it's off campus, that may be much easier. So everyone's going to have their different challenges and advantages. But for us, I would say probably twice a year would be as much as we could do. Now, we were going to do Zach Bryan. When you said weather, that was a bad joke because
I remember
we were going to do both nights. And then the first night we got, it was a thunderstorm with tons of lightning. And so we had to cancel Friday night. We just got to do Saturday. So that was different, where you could do back-to-back nights fairly easily. But if you were going to do 2 completely different shows, that would be a challenge. But again, the window of time based on your campus and what all is going on, the logistics of your stadium, that's going to impact you quite a bit.
Well, Justin, thanks for hosting me and being on High Road Athletics. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you anytime.
Welcome inside the Game One studio, and thank you for watching or listening to Higher Ed Athletics. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I enjoy talking to athletic directors off air and on air about really everything. And I love studying this leadership position of the career track that all of you are going down. And one thing that's been really helpful for me as I continue to grow this business and to keep paying the bills and is really these AD chair strategy sessions. So it is a 60-minute session where I will give you constructive feedback on where I think you're best positioned, your next move, maybe 2 moves from now, where the puck is going. And I think it can be very helpful. I've had great feedback on this. It is constructive and critical feedback. And I will be honest with you, based on me studying the position and talking to well over 100 ADs, I just think I have a pretty good idea. It's gotten to the point where if a job opens, about 5 minutes after that breaking news email, I have 5 people call or text or DM me asking, who do you think they're going to go after next? And I've been right sometimes. I've been right with finalists quite a bit. And the reason is because I study this position closer than anyone. And as I build Higher Ed Athletics into a search firm, I want to help you think about what that next job is, whether that's an AD job or a deputy job, or what your second move will be from now. So give me a chance to help you. I will give you the best feedback and best access to research and insights. Go to higheredathletics.com. Go to the bottom of the website. You'll see the AD chair strategy session. If you click that, there's a contact form right there. Tells you a little bit about it. And then basically just fill that out. I'll get dinged that this person wants to meet, and we can meet the next day.